Welcome to the Luxembourg Mind. Today we are recording our first episode of 2024, continuing from where we left off in 2023, talking to inspiring leaders and decision makers right here in Luxembourg. Today we are talking to Tony Whiteman. Tony represents the governance industry in Luxembourg, which has been doing so well over the years. Tony has multiple mandates like Blackstone, Deutsche Welle Services, Abbott, Whirlpool, amongst others. Tony completed his INSEAD Directors program in 2014 from INSEAD, which is known to be one of the best business schools in the world. He's also a board member for the INSEAD Directors Network. Rugby brought him to Luxembourg, but cricket is where I met him. In 2017, when I played for Luxembourg, Tony was my captain. Let's go find out more from Tony. Tony, thank you very much for being with us today.
You're welcome.
I'm going to jump straight into the questions. So Luxembourg over the last few years has emerged as this hub for governance, and amidst this background, you stand out as an example of strong governance in Luxembourg with your mandates of Blackstone, Deutsche Bank, Abbott, Whirlpool, and more. You represent the success that we've had on the governance side of things. Can you walk us through your career trajectory a bit? Like, how did you enter the world of governance, and what's your path been like?
Okay. A little bit by chance, really. We can talk about how I got to Luxembourg, etc. later, but it was 2007. I'd come back from London. I was director of a domiciliation company. There wasn't a longer-term business opportunity with that company, and I was approached by a friend about being they needed a director for a couple of Blackstone SPVs, large investments into Germany, and that's how it started. Really, I went for there wasn't really an interview process because Blackstone knew John quite well. So I offered to go to London to go and meet Blackstone. I actually hadn't heard of Blackstone at that stage. They were new to Europe, and their biggest concern was I was 37, too young. But I had a lot of other things going on, and we got through the process, and that's how it started. So
fantastic.
As I say, it was pure chance. But you're right. Luxembourg is an environment where they'd always had the financial centre, private banking originally, the UCITS, and I was at the start of the wave of the alternative space with Blackstone and these. So that's how I got started.
Okay. So exactly about 2 decades.
Yeah, that was 2007. So yeah,
almost
16, 17 years.
Fantastic.
And look, when I started in 2007 with these couple of mandates with Blackstone, then it was the financial crisis.
Yeah.
So there was not a lot of new business coming in. I went back to doing project work. I helped the migration of the ABN AMRO funds across to the Fortis platform. Fortis had bought ABN AMRO Asset Management. So I did that. And then, funnily enough, BNP bought Fortis a couple of years later. So I probably did project management in the funds world probably four or so years. But during that time, there was increased demand for independent directors here in Luxembourg, and starting with a name like Blackstone's great to have on your CV. And so it was probably about 2012. For family reasons, we decided to be in Luxembourg a lot longer. So I started getting out to the market. People were, obviously with the Blackstone label, they were coming. I was being invited to different things, and I sort of built my portfolio gradually over the years. The odd, couple of funds, alternative funds, some the corporate have their holding companies and intercompany financing here. Whirlpool, Abbott, these guys are here, and so slowly built it over time.
Fantastic.
It was great opportunity.
Fantastic. You've built quite a portfolio, and you've likely seen a lot of different things happen. You've dealt with different situations. Can you walk us through some of these situations that might have been a little more complex, a little more
Look, take a step back. My portfolio is made up of some very large asset managers, some large global corporates, and then the balance is family office, holding companies, these type, primarily in the alternative space. And you're right. When I got started, that was the financial crisis.
Exactly.
And funnily enough, some of the decisions that politically came out of the financial crisis meant that Luxembourg was in a great place to benefit from the growth of the alternative space. The European Union brought in the alternative, the AIFMD, the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive.
Sure.
And that basically, at a very high level, basically said, if you're going to be selling to European investors, you need a footprint in Europe. Ireland is a fund jurisdiction as well. They're more in the hedge fund space back then. Luxembourg, there was a lot of asset managers had the European holding companies, intercompany financing were based here. Luxembourg had, it's got obviously all the professionals, the legal, regulatory, tax, accounting, administration, fund administration support, and that there was growth from post the financial crisis. Probably it's still growing. Luxembourg, when I arrived in 1993, was very, very small, with 350,000 people. I think it's now 700 or
almost 700.
Yeah. And the growth in the last 10, 12 years has been alternative space. The cycles, it's been constant growth, since the financial crisis. There's been a few blips, but pretty much the trajectory has been growth in the alternative space. The UCITS have continued to grow, we're probably going through a bit of a blip. The unfortunate situation in Ukraine, and obviously the pandemic as well. They were economic, let's say, downturns. But really, even during that time, Luxembourg continued to grow because the trend was for the global asset managers in the alternative space to have a footprint in Luxembourg. A proper footprint. It's the days of letterbox companies away in the past.
Which is probably a good thing for Luxembourg as well.
Look, Luxembourg's a fantastic place for this. You've got, a stable economic situation. The government's, pretty stable. You've got. So I think the investors of the world are not worried about Luxembourg government taking extra tax in other jurisdictions. This is a concern for the holders of wealth. You've got a really, really well-trained and developed skill set across all of the sectors which you need for the asset management and financial services. Legal, regulatory, tax, administrative support, accounting. These, that's all here now. The multilingual goes without saying. Look, I've never had to speak another language. Luckily, my Kiwi English was okay. But the multilingual workforce here, it's fantastic that you can have lawyers, experts, dealing with clients in 3, 4, 5 languages. It really gives Luxembourg and the location. The location's nice. So
fantastic. And I guess in my decade here as well, I've seen the country becoming more and more internationalized, more and more globalized.
Look, I think it was always. When I first arrived in 1993, as I say, and I came here by chance. I never actually heard the word Luxembourg, but we can come to that in a minute. But it's always been, when they brought in the UCITS regulations, so I think it was the 80s.
Okay.
From there on, it was always international financial centre. The growth has been exponential in the last 15 so years. But the UCITS world was always cross-border and international. Maybe it was more European, whereas, as you say now, it's, you walked around the streets, Kirchberg, Cloche d'Or, some of the major names of the world are
Yes.
are here, and
Yes.
a lot of them too.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. When I look at your career and I look at you from my vantage point, it seems like you have a bit of a juggler's act. You have all your board mandates. You've got the sports stuff, the cricket, the rugby. You're involved with the Australian New Zealand Chamber of Commerce. It seems like you're juggling so many different roles. I'm curious. What's an average day like in the life of Tony Whiteman?
Funny if my wife says that sometimes. It's like, how do you look? It's pretty simple. Really get skilled up on Microsoft Office. For me, that's I couldn't do this without a tool like Microsoft Office.
Yeah.
Because you have the email, the contacts list,
Sure.
and your diary.
Your calendar, yeah.
And I tend not to use the task list because I have multiple clients, as you say, other interests outside work, 4 kids. Making sure that you don't forget something is very, very important in your governance role as a director, chasing up, these sort of things. What I do is, if I have a task today, I send out an email, guys, you need to be sending me this liquidation report, Then straight away I'll go to Microsoft Office calendar and put a reminder for Friday.
Yeah.
Did I get the document back from such and such law firm or corporate services firm or whatever? So that allows me to, some people call it juggle. For me, it's manage a lot of different information at any one point in time, because once it's down in Microsoft Office or in the calendar, or I've emailed myself, it's done. I don't need to think about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what clears my mind. So that's how I tend to manage it using the technology. Look, because I've being an independent director for 17 years, and it gradually happened over time, I was very careful to take on new clients. So which is probably one of the things I've really learned, is make sure when you take on a new client or a new role, whether volunteer or something, have capacity to be able to take that on.
Sure.
I probably, on the bulk of my clients, do 20 hours a week.
Okay.
I keep the other 10 to 15 for ad hoc work-related activities.
Okay.
Learning, training, meetings, going to conferences, continuing education, those sorts of things. Every so often, that the 35 hours will spike to 70, but that's not on average. There's a busy time mid-November through mid-December when all of the clients come. It's probably May, June, as you get to the filing the annual accounts, these sorts of things. So I think it's just being organised. That's so that allows you on your work, if you're organised, to deal with the family stuff. And look, with kids, you'll always have emergencies, always things come up. On the sports side, playing and being involved in administration, you need time for that, and the social side. You can't forget that you've got to have a bit of fun. So.
Fantastic. Cool. Now, you touched upon your connection to Luxembourg a bit earlier. You said you came here in '93.
Yeah, look, I was like a lot of Antipodeans, Kiwis, Australians, other members of the Commonwealth. They get a right to go to the UK on a 2-year working visa. And I had a British passport. My father was born in England, and me and my friend, he was a painter decorator. I'd just finished my business degree, and we landed in London. It was actually in the early 90s, there was a recession on there, and I ended up, after a few months, I thought the streets of London were going to be paved with gold. That's how naive I was back then. It was, but I ended up getting a part-time role painting, and then I was very lucky to get an administrative role in an advertising company, and that's where it started. I worked there for 9 months, then went travelling, went back to New Zealand for a year, and then the company asked me to come back. I was there 2 years, and then a friend of mine, his father had I think it was Mets or a New Zealand selection rugby was playing in this region, and the Luxembourg guys made contact, the rugby club, and then the guy that I've actually played cricket with for many, many years, he had finished his diploma in New Zealand, and his father arranged for him to come and work here.
Okay.
After 2 years, he got a bit bored with the place. He was 23 or whatever. It was quite quiet back then. And I was in London and said, do you want to come play rugby in Luxembourg? So I said, yeah, where is Luxembourg? What is it? And so I came over and you know, there was actually he's he's just become an independent director a few years ago, retired from the EIB. He was a Welsh guy who was president of the club, and they got probably over the 2-year period, probably 10 to 12 players, rugby players to come here, and got us jobs in the banks and the financial institute. Yeah, and I got a job in a private bank in the back office, and then 6 months later I was a foreign exchange dealer. So it was
fantastic.
Yeah, I met my wife. Met my wife after 4 months, I think, and we had a great time.
So thank God for rugby.
Look, I think sports are great. Great for networking and contact. You know, whether you're just social or you take it really, really serious. I always took it seriously, it's great for creating a network.
Oh, that's great. That's
fantastic. Yeah, in a nice way. It's positive. So that was the way I started. Yeah.
How do you envision your relationship with Luxembourg going forward? I can already see you engaging in a lot of volunteer roles. You're giving back. Can you walk us through some of these things you're doing?
Oh, look. Yeah. If I take a step back, Luxembourg's been fantastic. You know, with the opportunity that coming here, the rugby club look out, becoming a foreign exchange dealer was fantastic. That's the job I really, really loved. My wife's Luxembourgish, and luckily enough, we've had 4 little Kiwi burgers. Oscar, who's now 23, and the 3 girls, Chloe, Sophie, and Hannah. I better get their names right. So I think it's just natural to me that if you get something, you should give back. And look, I've always given back through the years into the sport, because that's what I've had. That's been my social life and where that's come from. Going forward, look, I'll continue to do on the work side, because financially it's been very beneficial doing what I'm doing. So I'm helping on the mentoring side through ELA. I have informally mentored quite a few people who wanted to become independent directors over the years, but just in the last few years it's been more of a formal process, which is good. On the, let's say, outside of the work, but related to work, as you say, at the start, I was asked to set up the Australian-New Zealand Chamber of Commerce. I'm the New Zealand chair. It's a long way away to New Zealand, Australia, but there are some interactions, and it will grow. Funny enough, they put in place a visa between the young working visa between Luxembourg and New Zealand, Australia, Canada, a couple of other countries. And like I went to London because of that, with my friend who had the visa. So that's been quite nice as part of the Australian-New Zealand Chamber of Commerce. When we set it up, we were asked by the Lux government, we set up this visa. 50 Luxembourgers had been to New Zealand. 0 New Zealand has been to Luxembourg. I said, I don't know what this is. And so I looked into the process, and unfortunately the process was very bureaucratic. The Luxembourg has to utilise the embassy, the Belgian embassy in Adelaide. And so a young New Zealander, even if they knew about Luxembourg, they knew I didn't know it existed, but even if they do, the process was that bureaucratic. They wouldn't. So I've, over the last couple of years, helped sort of unblock that process just by understanding it and working, putting myself, if I was a young Kiwi, how would I get it? And so we went to the Lux government. Through rugby, I met the Luxembourg government official who put it in place. He's now retired, but he was an ambassador. And so I met him through the rugby, and by chance, and so we helped unblock it. What other volunteers? with IDN, the INSEAD. I'm a IDPC, which is Certified Director out of INSEAD. I did the International Directors Program a few years back. One of the guys here who was on the global board, Tom Seal, asked whether I'd be happy to volunteer to provide a resource on that, and so I do that. I think once you've been in a place a long time, if you do have a little bit of capacity, it really is rewarding to help people. I've always wanted to help people. People help me over the years, so I'm more than happy to give back. So I think that's what I'll do. Look, Luxembourg has grown. It's taken its opportunities in the financial centre. Obviously, the big benefit of Luxembourg is the government and the industry works to give them the financial services. But it's not always been perfect. So I have some informal channels just for being here a long time. So I always feed back to the Luxembourg environment, the government, the industry, how we need to be improving. If I'm seeing things from my clients, little pain points, I'm always happy to help feed that information back to the people. So
that is really cool, Tony.
Look, you have to. Bureaucracy has to be there to govern the world. Well, let's say the world that wants to be governed. But sometimes that gets in the way of, let's say a capitalist development. And you do it helps to know people. And obviously Luxembourg's a small country. So, my doctor used to be an MP. And so I used to always, what's going on out in the financial sector? It's good to hear. So the feedback is good. So.
Cool. I want to ask you about the IDN and the IDP that you just mentioned.
Okay.
The IDP, it's been thriving as a program. INSEAD seems to contribute a lot to the IDP program. And our alumni association in INSEAD, the largest growing cohort of members are coming from the IDP. And you've been deeply involved with the IDN. Could you walk us through a little bit about the network and your own role there?
Okay, yeah. Look, I think the IDP, the International Director Program, Luxembourg, I think it was ELA, the Luxembourg Directors Association, was whether they were part of the setting up of INSEAD doing the International Directors Program. So there's always quite a big link. When I did my IDP course back in, was it 2014, of the 45, 50 people, I think probably 8 were from Luxembourg, because obviously the demand for directors in Luxembourg was growing. It's a fantastic course, very motivating, dealing with some of the the people that you meet, the professionals from around the world who are continuing their governance and director training. So it's great. Luxembourg, I think, has, I don't know the number of INSEAD alumni. How many do we have in the Alumni Association here in Luxembourg?
Officially, we're about between 270 and 300 registered members with the IAL.
These are MBAs, other courses, whatever. Yeah. Look, I think on the IDN, there's the the International Directors Network. There's about 1,500 globally who've done the IDP course. Yeah. In Luxembourg, there's 10% of those, 150. And it's a good network, exchanging governance ideas, both globally and also with your cohorts in Luxembourg. Socially, it's nice getting together with people who are like-minded and have, sharing ideas on governance and things. So I think it's an important function within the Luxembourg financial community and governance community. There's a new Luxembourg IDN ambassador.
Yes.
She started recently, Anastasia. So she's taken over from Rosa, who I think did 6 years, I think. So it's a new beginning. So it'll be interesting. So I'm going to help her. I said, because my role at the global board of IDN, I said I will help as she gets started, because there's a lot of members here to keep happy, and so we're going to have an event probably later this year on mental health in the boardroom. That's the idea. So hopefully that can come to fruition.
That's great. Anesthesia brings so much energy and vibrancy, and I'm sure that'll translate to a lot more events for the IDN.
Yeah, I think, look, people are busy. I suppose there's always a balance of these volunteer organisations. And look, when I started the ANZ CCL as chairperson, I drove with a guy called Rob Deed. You may know him from the cricket, and he had been the chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce years and years ago. And I asked him, I said, what should I'm just starting this role as chairperson of the ANZ, the Australian New Zealand Chamber of Commerce. Any tips? And he said, look, just be careful not to overtax people's volunteer spirit because everyone's busy. Ask for people to volunteer rather than sort of, oh, could you do this? Could you? And I think that's it's good advice. Get people to come to the party rather than you forcing them to. Which is, and that's worked well. So I think Anastasia, but you're right, she's got the energy, and I'm sure it's going to be a fun 3 or 6 years, depending how long she wants to.
I must say that's also very good advice, given that we work with a lot of volunteers on the CFA and INSEAD side. That's
Look, you talk about governance, which is why the original sort of the reason we wanted to chat. Governance of businesses, profit-generated business is a cinch compared to volunteer organisations, because on a profit-generated, you've got a reason. You've always got a carrot and a stick situation. In volunteers, it always has to be a carrot, because you have to get that volunteer spirit. And not everyone, and dealing with committees and things, it's even more difficult when you get to dealing with families. Governance of the family, and especially the kids is difficult, but it is. Balancing resources in a volunteer organisation is difficult. But
cool. I'm now going to move us to the most important question I wanted to ask you. The reason why we're doing this interview is actually because of the cricket. You've been involved with Luxembourg cricket for a while. You were the captain of the national team. I played under you in Malta.
Yes, that was a good, fun trip. Yeah.
And you've been involved with the LCF for a while as well. Could you walk us through, how the LCF, how Luxembourg cricket has grown so much over the years, how we're doing so well?
Wow. Okay. Well, it's coming up 50 years next year, or the year after. I think it's soon. We had the 50th for the rugby last year, and it's so cricket in Luxembourg started out through the English-speaking population being here, through the financial services, the funds, and probably private banking a little bit back in the 80s, and the European institutions. So you had English-speaking people, primarily from the UK. Lucky enough to get a fantastic ground in Walfordonge, so shout out to the Walfordonge commune for providing a fantastic facility. There was probably one team in Luxembourg for up until when I arrived, actually in 1993, and then we were playing in the Belgian competition. The Optimus was playing there. Then I think as the population in Luxembourg started to grow, there was cricketers from all around the world. From India, Pakistan. There's been over the years a couple of Sri Lankan guys. And as Luxembourg grew, the number of teams in Luxembourg has just exploded. I think now we've got 10 teams, first and second division. There's a women's team. There's loads of kids playing. We're short of another ground, but that's fine. Luxembourg real estate is quite expensive, so it'll take a while to get one of those. But the reason it's grown is just because the demand. There's people have come in. There's a lot of, I would say the biggest population in Luxembourg cricket now is from India. The big four, there's a lot of, Amazon, there's in the ICT space, the consultancy firms have there's a lot of guys from India in that industry, and once they get to Luxembourg, like most other expats, they stay.
Sure.
And it's really grown, and the quality of cricket has really, really advanced. Look, I was lucky enough to play, you'd probably describe it as minor county cricket in New Zealand. I got to face 5 or 6 New Zealand bowlers, which is great. But you're starting to get those sort of people coming here, and you know, there's a couple of guys. Richard Neal, he played, you know, in Worcester, which is a first class club. I think he was in the seconds. He you know, for a number of, so he was a professional cricketer. Yeah. There's a number of guys now in the cohort who've played, you know, regional, as I understand it, in India, age grade for their first class region. I'm not sure whether we've had any first class cricketers come here. Not sure, but that's meant that the quality of the Luxembourg team has really improved. And so I think countries that play us will go, oh, this is just a little old Luxembourg. But you know, we have now a few guys in the team who were born in Luxembourg. Sure. They come from international families. Sure. Obviously, mums and dads know about cricket, but that's great. So I think when I stopped as captain of the Luxembourg T20 side, what was that, 4 or 5 years ago, I think we had 3 or 4 that had been born in Luxembourg, and 4 or 5 Luxembourg citizens, and then the rest were made up of residents that had been here 3 years to get the qualification. So it's great.
No, it's a super setup. I'm going to move us now to the fun segment. It's the rapid fire segment. I'm going to give you a couple of options, Tony.
Can I get a glass of water or something? No, I'm teasing.
I think you'll be fine. I'm going to give you a couple of options, and you just pick one spur of the moment based on what you feel. So I'm going to jump straight into it.
Okay.
First question. Would you rather have the fruit or the bird as the Kiwi mascot?
Oh, the kiwi or the fruit? Oh. I think the kiwi is traditional, so I'll go with the bird. The kiwi fruit it's getting more and more, but no, I think the kiwi bird.
Okay. Test cricket or T20 cricket?
Oh, look, I love both. You know, recently the Test cricket, some of the results has been fantastic. I think it's great that you now have the
championship,
the cricket championship, which hey, New Zealand won the first one, so at last New Zealand got a ICC competition. But T20, you know, it's a fantastic game. And actually, I've retired from T20, but T10 came in, and I'm continuing to play because of T10. So.
Okay. I have to apologize for this.
So I can't answer either Test cricket or T10. Okay.
But you appreciate both.
Yeah, both. Yeah.
I have to apologize for this next one. This is a slightly tough question for you. Would you rather rewatch the 2019 Cricket World Cup Finals or the 2023 Rugby World Cup Finals?
I've not watched neither of them.
Really?
Yeah. Look, being a sportsman and playing at a reasonable high level in both, I understand what the guys have gone through and the pain. I feel it as a supporter. Yeah. But no, I wouldn't watch.
But they were both great games, really close games.
Yeah. I probably would prefer to watch the cricket. The rugby is that probably pains me more than the cricket. Yeah, probably.
All right. Strategic thinking, cricket captaincy or financial leadership?
Oh wow, completely different, huh? With the captain of a cricket team, it's the passion plus the empathy with your players. Yeah. In financial leadership, you need the empathy, but it's probably less emotion. Sure. I think because it's maybe longer term. You know, with the team, you obviously there's planning and stuff, but yeah. So I think it's probably cricket leadership is emotion and a little bit of strategy. Financial is empathy with what you're dealing with, and the people that you're leading, but maybe a little bit more pragmatic.
Okay, that's a good answer. Last one on the rapid fire. Watching Luxembourg beat Belgium at the Pierre Warner Stadium or New Zealand beat Australia at the Basin Reserve?
Oh, I have watched Belgium be beaten by Luxembourg in T10 cricket.
Okay.
We were there a few years, when was that, last year or the year before? There's a new European cricket network, and Luxembourg beat Belgium, so that was fantastic. Look, I think the big stage of New Zealand beating Australia at the Basin Reserve in a test match. Look, New Zealand is, when it comes to rugby, New Zealand are the big dogs. When it comes to cricket, Australia are the big dogs, and New Zealand knows that. So beating Australia in test cricket is something that for any team doesn't happen very often, and for New Zealand, that would be. So I'd have to go with the watching. Yeah.
Fair enough. This brings us to our final question, and I'm going to go back to the governance piece. I'm going to ask you for a piece of advice. What piece of advice would you have for governance professionals, independent directors who are trying to stay relevant in this increasingly dynamic environment where things are changing rapidly? What can they do to accelerate their careers, grow their mandates?
The harder you work, the easier it gets. That's what I tell my kids. So it isn't here in Luxembourg. When I started, it was a lot. Let's say there was less independent directors around. So you do have to get out there and network, but network in a friendly way, in a professional way. When I started, as I say, I got lucky starting with Blackstone, but once I decided to be an independent director, I spent 5 years of really meeting people, going to events. That was the hard work, there's people need to know that you are an independent director. They also need to know that you're good and you have the disciplines and you understand the roles that you're getting. There's no mandate shop. While everyone, there's a lot of independent directors around, they've got their roles through introductions. Professionals in the financial services, lawyers, people in the corporate services, asset management companies ask other people to get in touch with an independent director. So you need to network, but as I say, in a polite, social way, rather than it's not a hard sell. And look, you need to be technically proficient. So ongoing education, upskilling, reading, going to conferences, presentations, big part of the ID, the IDP, the Luxembourg INSEAD alumni. Let's have a little plug for going to those sort of events where you'll meet people, you'll learn things. But it's hard work. You need to be out there. I think once you get into it, you need to make sure you have always capacity to deal with your existing clients while you bring on new ones. The days of wet ink signatures are sort of slowly fading out, but the best advice I had was the guy who introduced me, John Sutherland, who introduced me to Blackstone all those years ago, was just be available 24/7. Yeah, because you're part of a team, especially here in Luxembourg as a governance director. You're part of the operational type team. While you have the responsibility, you have to make decisions. You are part of that team. A couple of years later, it was take a portable printer, a scanner when you go on holiday, because every so often there might be a big transaction and you need to sign some documents. So that's and finding now you can always use electronic signatures, but a lot of transactions still require wet ink. So having a printer scanner and in your stroller when you get on the plane is a good idea, because you don't want to be the guy if there's all of the transactions going through, you've done all the preparation and something gets missed, and you may just have to sign a signature page or something, or a credit document or whatever, and but work hard. It's not an easy role to build up your portfolio. It takes time.
That's great advice, Tony. It's been a delightful discussion. You've touched upon so many different facets of life here in Luxembourg. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hope it's useful for someone out there, and always there to help. Luxembourg is growing, so if people want any help or guidance becoming independent directors or any other aspect of Luxembourg life, that's we didn't touch on some of the aspects of Luxembourg which need to improve. Which is it's grown so much, so education, housing, these sorts of things. So always happy to present Luxembourg in a good light. Happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.